Welcome to the Lineman Lounge, hosted by Mike and Evo, calling their shots and being outlandish.
Breaking news from Lineman Lounge. My fantasy football team just took a huge fucking hit. And that also makes it even more likely that the Raiders are going to beat the Ravens on Monday night. Le'Veon Bell is about to be your starter. Latavius Murray is going to go there as well. Jesus, fuck my ass.
Get ready for the thickest podcast in the game. Coming to you from Hangar 6, where sleeves are optional. Strap in. The show starts right now.
¿Cómo están, bitches? This is the Lineman Lounge. I am Mike, the man to my right. Looking sexy as fuck as always is the thick Evo. Man, you are rocking a shitload of purple today. But
actually, blue.
We are here on a... That's blue. It looks purple as shit on this TV. Man,
it's fun. It's fun playing with
the lights.
We do a lot of CGI and stuff in the show, so making it look like I'm just dripped in purple.
But man, I am pumped to be here. It is a beautiful Saturday. It's a little chilly. We're getting our new table put in upstairs right now. If those guys are listening, shout out. Appreciate you doing the work that you're doing right now and helping out the wife put that table together. But man, we got a busy ass weekend. Yeah, so we got a brand new table. The old one is downstairs. New table is being put together and installed up in the kitchen.
As long as we don't have any sort of like a mailman situation going on.
No. My kids are up there, and I have my gun down here, so we're not. No, so man, it's been a great weekend so far. I have got a ton of shit to do. I got a lot of homework. I got to write some scripts. I had to film a movie this week. With some shit I've never done before, but I am fucking pumped. I am ready to get into some more playoff football. But before we start getting into the show, Evo, my man, how you doing? How's the weekend going? Just getting started. Any big plans?
I'm doing all right. It's been a rough week in general. Personal stuff going on, but ready to get started with the weekend for sure. It's still early for me technically on a Saturday morning, even if it is 11 here in Arizona. I've not been sleeping well, so I'm glad to be getting into some normalcy. Well. Yeah, glad to be getting into some normalcy here a little bit, even though I'm basically going to be on the road all next week, out in your neck of the woods. Unfortunately, probably not going to be hanging out with you, taking care of business, but yeah, looking forward to doing some of that. And definitely looking forward to Super Divisional Round Weekend.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that we got rid of Super Wild Card Weekend, the Divisional Round. We're into the teams that I feel like probably should be here at this point. There are some question marks. There's one or two outliers. But I feel like we'll take a look back at the picks from last week. Teams that we expected to win, for the most part, won. Even teams that were underdogs won last weekend. There were a couple of upsets, but I mean, you're going to have that every once in a while. We talked about it last week. This is a different fucking season. So those things are going to happen from time to time, but, let's get into some sports. We'll talk youth sports, wrestling. Graydon's still going strong. He's got a tournament tomorrow, or a duel tomorrow, and then sectionals coming up 2 weeks from now. So that'll be the real test to see how much he's actually learned about wrestling, being able to manipulate his body. But coach is saying good things. His footwork has apparently gotten a lot better, which is fantastic. That's what we need for football time. And then, we'll see how things go elsewhere. Not necessarily youth sports, but local sports. The Cleveland State women, they did drop a game, 2 games back, got knocked off their 15-game win streak, but they got back into the win column last night. Big win. I believe they won like 71-102. And this is women's basketball, so they were absolutely filling up the fucking bucket, which is great. Glad to see the girls are back in the win column. And we've heard back from compliance from the NCAA and Cleveland State University. We are a go. So we are going to start trying to get some interviews scheduled with some of these players from the Cleveland State women's team. So pretty pumped about that.
Awesome.
Evo, anything your neck of the woods, local or youth sports wise, that we want to talk about before we start diving into the show?
No, nothing major that I can think of, man. I'm ready to get going with some of these sports.
All right. So let's fucking do that then. First thing we're going to talk about, we're going to get into baseball. I know baseball season not going on right now, but there continues to be news that swirls around, and specifically your team. Your team is in all sorts of news. You guys end up signing Correa. Well, now you're getting rid of, in my opinion, your best hitter on your team in Luis Arias to bring back in a really good arm in Pablo Lopez. But, man, it would be hard for me as a Twins fan giving up what I think is your best hitter. How are you feeling about this? I know we talked about it a little bit before. You don't necessarily know a ton about the guys that you're getting back, especially the prospects. But, I mean, Pablo Lopez is good, and your guys' your relief was terrible last year.
Yeah, that's pitching was obviously an issue and an area that we need to get better in. Arias was kind of one of those. I mean, he's 25 years old, but still consider him to really be an up and coming kind of bat on the team, someone to be excited about going forward. But in all honesty, it's kind of typical Twins to get rid of some of their good up and coming players to try to stay relative in the meantime. We've seen it before. David Ortiz is known for being a batter for the Red Sox. He was a Twin before the Red Sox
started his career as a Twin, hitting a lot of balls the opposite direction and not pulling the ball because that's kind of what he was taught to do up there in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's pretty much status quo for the Twins. Is if you have some sort of a hot young prospect, you'll see him for year or two, maybe 3, and then they kind of get rid of them for what they can, so that way they don't have to pay them. So it's disappointing, I suppose. Obviously, the team needs to get better. We got back this, right-hander Pablo Lopez and a couple prospects. I'm not sure about the prospects as much. I don't know much about the prospects. To be rated pretty high. But at the end of the day, they're prospects, and it'll be sad to see Arias go. It was probably an inevitable, because if he continues hitting the ball as good as he has been, he's going to warrant big money. Team's just not going to shell out the big money like they should to younger players, not named Correa. So it was kind of, I guess I was shocked and not shocked at the same time. So bummed about it, but we'll keep moving forward and being what we are as Twinkies, which is middling and average at best.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I got nothing else on baseball, man. I thought it was interesting. He was one of your more productive guys. Trade him to, obviously fill a need, but you guys didn't score a ton of runs last year either.
But, well, we got Gallo now. He's just going to hit a whole shitload of dingers, apparently.
Yeah, he's not. He's going to strike out so many times. But all right, let's get off of baseball. We're going to talk about basketball real quick, but we're not actually going to talk about the sport of basketball. We're just going to talk about the NBA, because some shit happened last night that I felt one way about when I initially saw it, and I have a different feeling about it now. If you're not aware, Shannon Sharp is a huge Laker fan, huge LeBron fan. And he was at a Lakers game last night. They're taking on the Grizzlies. And if you also don't know, Shannon Sharp is pretty well known for talking. That man can talk with the best of them. And he will let you know whatever he fucking wants to, anytime he wants to. Well, he was chirping at one of the players on the Grizzlies, and I don't know the kid's name from the Grizzlies, but he was not having it. He starts chirping back at Shannon Sharp, and kind of gets into like a full-blown confrontation. You can see Shannon Sharp actually saying, "Why don't you come over here and say that shit to my face?" Like telling him to come stand in front of him. Little altercation ensues. Shannon is removed to the back for halftime, basically cuts a fucking WWE promo in the back with his interview, and then is allowed back out to the game. It's a big to do. And I know I asked you, you've seen this. What is your take on this? Because I feel like if Shannon Sharpe is not Shannon Sharpe, he is thrown out of the stadium. But I think there is a little bit of a double standard here that is being applied because it is Shannon Sharpe. And the players on the Grizzlies have every right to be upset with the way they're being talked to by a fan, which is exactly what Shannon is.
It's one of the dynamics in basketball that you are probably closer to the professional athletes than you are in almost any other sport. Especially if you're sitting courtside, you're right there. They can hear you. You can chirp and almost be part of the game. I mean, we've seen this from celebrities all the time. So in that respect, if a celebrity is sitting that close, they can have that dialogue a lot of times and get the reactions from players. And it wasn't just, I mean, nobody that he was talking to, Dylan Brooks and Steven Adams on the team, but most importantly, Ja Morant. Ja Morant's one of the best up and coming guys from the Grizz. And that's who he really, really got into it with. And that sort of a candor, you're right, would normally probably get a person kicked out. And at the end of the day, it's just disappointing for me. Shannon Sharpe, I knew him as the 14-year NFL veteran.
3-time Super Bowl champion, one of the best tight ends in the history, undersized for the position, but would absolutely bury you. Like, Shannon Sharpe is a fucking stud, rightfully in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he made me, I mean, I guess I don't know for sure just because it was so long ago now, but I mean, I feel like he was one of the earlier pass catching tight ends where it's like you really saw him as more of the move tight end type guy. He was that bigger receiver or smaller tight end. And I really, really respect the guy and respected him as a player. And now that he's jumped into his new career as being a commentator, instead of doing what a lot of those NFL guys do, where they get on different talk shows specifically about the NFL, he's inserted himself into much more of the public spectrum as the new Stephen A. Smith and the new Skip Bayless and that sort of, inflammatory talk guy, a lot on social justice issues and things like that, where players are absolutely allowed to have that sort of mindset. But I mean, I put a post up this week about Stephen A, where he's trying to talk about how he's taking Tony Pollard over Christian McCaffrey, and it's just an inflammatory
that was Skip. That was not Stephen A. I will not. Yeah. So listen, I have a love-hate relationship with Stephen A, Skip, and starting to be Shannon a little bit too. But that was definitely Skip's dumbass.
But that's kind of the point for me too.
Over Austin Eckler.
That's kind of the point for me too, is that once you start talking about those guys in that spectrum, I just don't see who's doing it anymore. I just know that it's bullshit. I know that in general, it's 90-95% dog shit takes to get headlines, and that's what's keeping them relevant.
Masters of hyperbole and outlandish takes. I mean, don't get me wrong, the shit sells. Like, they are on ESPN, they're making lots of money, and we are not making any.
It sells because people like to argue about things that are obviously bullshit. Yeah. You see it in today's regular media that you're fed fucking bullshit and vitriol in order to get people riled up, and it sells. It's unnecessary to me. I feel like it is downgrading a person's worth and career that they could have stood on without that sort of stuff. And I feel like it's just a stunt what was done yesterday. Like, I know that he's very outspoken. I know that he likes to talk shit and stuff in general, but I don't know that it goes as far if he's not in the same media position that he is right now. I don't think that he takes it that far. And I think that he's making that transition of, I can make this public headline now, and it's only going to promote me better as another one of those guys that talk shit on sports talk radio. And it's a bummer to me. I have to really make the cut between Shannon Sharp as the player and who I respect, and now as a media personality. It's a bummer. Like you said, they probably would have gotten thrown out if it was another person. But it's keeping them relevant in their job, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Listen, Shannon, I love the way that you talk on TV, but this kind of thing, you're getting into the Stephen A. Skip Bayless territory. Like, let's pull that back. Let's just go be loudmouth Shannon Sharp, who is often pretty good at his job and fairly right for the most part. He messed up last night, but it is whatever. But with that said, we'll get out of the NBA. We'll start talking about football. But before we do that, I got to shout out somebody. So this is a young man that we have featured on the show before. He was one of our early youth sports spotlights. Malachi Cooper right now is currently at a Northern Alabama championship wrestling tournament. Working towards a championship. He is 18-1 on the season. His first match is down. He has won that one. He's got 3 to go to win a what I believe sounds like a regional title. So Malachi, keep up the good work, kid. Go out there, beat some ass, get pins. That way you don't have to burn too much energy throughout the day. The more pins you get and the quicker you get them, the fresher you are when you get to the championship round. So go get him, kid.
Yeah, and we know he's a fucking dude. So
he's a fucking dude.
He's gonna do great.
But all right, you got anything else before we start hopping into the NFL and the playoff schedule for the week?
No, man, I'm ready to get going in the NFL. Obviously, I am. My team is no longer a part of this equation, which is a bummer. It's something that I felt definitely could happen. So I got a lot of those messages, you doing okay, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was fine.
And none of it is actually checking to see if you're okay. It's just like, hey, by the way, your team sucks. That's what those messages are for. It's never like, actually, are you okay?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I had several choice words out at the restaurant, sports bar, whatever that we were at for my team. But we're starting to make moves in the right direction, which I expected. Fired a defensive coordinator at Donatel here.
Had to go.
Absolutely. And we've started requesting our interviews. I saw this morning that we've got a request out for Brian Flores already. So we'll see. I look forward to the future. Most of what this team has done in the past year since Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and KOC have taken over has been very positive. I really like the way the team is trending. This is one of the major oopsie daisies that they made, was bringing in Donatel. KOC wanted Vic Fangio and Vic Fangio's scheme. Donatel is a Fangio disciple, and Fangio hadn't had a fantastic or notable career really up to this point, and there's a reason why. I think that Donatel is probably a really good dude from everything that people have talked about, but he's just not the best defensive coordinator you could really ask for. So that was the weakness on this team. And I'm a defensive type of guy. I love defensive play. I've been very happy for years under Mike Zimmer because of that defensive play.
Right.
It is time to blow the thing up. It's time to blow the defense up, get better. And if we make a jump from 31 in the NFL on defense to 20, 22,
yeah,
this team is very competitive. We're probably still in the playoffs and actually have a chance to go for things. So, and I think that can be done definitely within a year or so. I'm just going to see a lot of veterans that I really like on this team probably leaving,
go away.
And it's a necessary Band-Aid to pull off.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand because kind of we're in the exact same position. Now, we have hired our new defensive coordinator already. We are no longer in the hunt. My number one choice was Brian Flores. I love that dude. Like, I love the way he coaches. I love Thank you. I love the vitriol with which he left Miami, telling them to basically go fuck themselves because I'm not here to lose games. I'm here to win. I love that about him, and I thought that it plays really well in a locker room. On top of him being a really good defensive coach, that did not happen. But
the fact that he still has interviews going on and people requesting interviews says a lot about him, because he does have an open investigation with the league still, like an open lawsuit against the league. And we've seen how people in and around the league who kind of are going against the shield in ways
will get blackballed. Yeah,
like your former starting center and NFLPA representative of the players, very good player, hasn't gotten any movement on being part of a team.
No, I don't
the entire
think he
year
will either.
Yeah, his career is probably done as a professional football player.
I mean, you can go back to Kaepernick. Like, if you are doing anything that the shield dictates, and it's anything that they say that they don't like or that possibly makes them look bad, they can, will, and have basically just shut you out of the league.
Yeah. And
that's not happening with Brian Flores.
Yeah. They're still getting interviews and stuff done with Flores.
So he's a really good coach.
Rooney Rule type stuff or something like that as well, because I know the Rooney Rule stuff now has changed, is extended to coordinators and other coaches when you're doing interviews. But that would be a little bit disrespectful, in my opinion, to Flores. I think that he's a phenomenal coach. Obviously, what he did down there in Miami, he made that team competitive and was outspoken, strong character guy, though. I really like what he stands for in general as a coach, but the way the product that he put on the field, undeniable how good it is. So he's definitely one of the guys that I am very interested in looking at as our defensive coordinator. The guy that I actually have above him, and we talked about this earlier in the week, and I said, hey, I got to get this out to someone because I can't talk about it yet on the show, but this is what I'm looking for. I really like Evero out in Denver. I know that he's gotten some looks at head coaching interviews. I don't know that this will be the year. He's a former LA Rams guy, so they had the overlap with O'Connell out there. He went to Denver last year after Vic Fangio was fired as the head coach. He became the new defensive coordinator, and that defense was still solid. If there's one thing that Denver fans can be happy about, it is that defense. They were still rock solid, holding teams to 16, less than 20 points, which is a huge benchmark in the NFL. Did great with the Rams as a defensive backs coach, so there's overlap there with KOC. He was also a part of the defensive staff in San Francisco when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was out there, so there's a lot of overlap there. So it's a guy that would make a lot of sense to bring in, and at the end of the day, I want a name that I recognize that I can be happy with, but I just want new, fresh, aggressive defense. I want someone that is going to cater the defense towards the players that we have and be willing to make adjustments off of their scheme as necessary.
So we talked about this in our text. I don't worry about a D coordinator being a young, up-and-coming guy. Like, defense is probably not going to be too revolutionary from a schematic standpoint. Like, you're going to line up typically how you line up. Now, maybe you can find some different ways to disguise, but defense is pretty simple in its design, not necessarily its execution. So I don't worry about a young guy. I'm happy with who we got. We went out, we signed Jim Schwartz, who has been a head coach in this league, been a good defensive coordinator, won a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator. Like, to me, those are the things I want, a proven track record when I'm talking about a D coordinator, because they've been around the league. They've watched the league grow offensively, and they're still putting out good product defensively. Now, if that's what you can do as a defensive coordinator, I don't need you to come up with some sort of new scheme. I don't need you to be the next creator of a 4-6 bear front or something like that. What I need you to do is be able to recognize the pattern that is happening in the league on the offensive side of the ball and adjust your defense accordingly to be able to be a top 15 defense in the league. And I think that we got that in Jim Schwartz. I'm excited for Jim Schwartz. He was my number 2 pick behind Brian Flores. But I think that Flores is probably, we talked about this as well in our text. Flores is probably staying pat, right? Like we got Jim Schwartz. You guys have you're another team looking for a D coordinator and a good team, so you will get probably the pick of the litter over some other teams. But
yeah, that's
Brian Flores he's not going to go somewhere unless he feels like it's a really, really good fit and can win immediately, right? It doesn't.
There's a couple names that I had thought, there would be possibilities of us looking at or being looked at around the league for D coordinator and head coach spots in Raheem Morris, in Gerard Mayo, and in Brian Flores. And with McVay going back to the Rams, Raheem Morris stays. I don't see any way that he leaves unless it is for a head coaching gig, which he, I believe, deserves. You've got Flores, who came in late as a defensive coach for those Steelers, and I feel like because he got the shot there, that he would be more than likely to stay. And is already, interviews have been requested, and he's turned them down. The news about him, an interview with him being requested this morning, is new. I don't know that there's been time for it to be turned down, so it'll be interesting to see if he actually takes that interview, because then that'll actually show if he is willing to take the interview.
Then he's probably willing to maybe go and be the coach.
Right. And then Gerard Mayo, Belichick has publicly said that they want to extend him. They want to keep him there, make him a bigger role. I feel like he is definitely in line to be the defensive coordinator there.
He should be
in New England. And he probably ends up sticking under that Belichick system. So that would be my guess.
Of the guys that are in New England right now who eventually could take the mantle for Belichick, I think the only guy that I would pick would be Mayo at this point. I'm not giving Patricia another chance. I'm not giving Judge another shot right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he's the most logical guy, so they got to try to retain him. I mean, we're going to see a lot more of these things come up. It's going to be hot season. We just had Black Monday. So
I expect the dominoes to really start falling. I mean, because they haven't as of yesterday. You've seen some GM candidates and stuff go, but it'll probably be Monday now when we start to see these dominoes start to fall, because the coaches, a lot of them have been interviewed, a lot of them have been talked to, and this is really when we're going to start seeing movement happen. I think the biggest domino to fall is Sean Payton. A lot of teams are in on him, rightfully so. And the reason why I think nothing has happened yet is because he is just waiting to see if the Dallas Cowboys get knocked out this weekend, because Jerry Jones probably wants him. He probably wants to go
Jerry
there.
Jones will pay, and Jerry Jones will give up the fucking pick to go get him.
That's where my gut is pointing me. And I know we've heard a lot in the past year about how Jerry Jones really likes Sean Payton, but I feel like in this new coaching cycle that we're going through right now, the past 2 to 3 weeks, we haven't really heard a lot about Sean Payton going to Dallas, because Dallas has looked really good, at least record wise. They tripped and stumbled in the last couple of weeks of the regular season. They obviously had some major issues with at least one player last week, but if they win this weekend, I think that kind of takes it off the board, where Jerry Jones isn't just going to fire McCarthy. You're almost kind of handcuffed.
If he gets you to the championship game, you can't fire him. You can't.
Right. So I think Jerry's looking at it as a win-win. Either we go to the NFC Championship game, or I get Sean Payton. I think that's what's going on. So you don't hear that as much in the media right now, because it's just easier to talk about him going other places, with maybe Denver being one of the biggest options. I have also heard a report that that Payton was really in on that Cardinals slot, except for the owners up there in Arizona, or down here in Arizona, I should say. They did not want to give him the full miser control. They hired their new GM this week in Ossenfort, I believe, from Titans.
Yeah. He was a player personnel director, I believe, right?
Yeah, and he's actually someone that the Vikings had interviewed last year for their GM spot. So it sounds like the guy deserves a shot, but because Peyton couldn't get that complete control, he's kind of off on the job in Arizona now. So we'll see. I think Monday we're going to start to see probably our first true domino fall on where people start to go, and we will get deep into that next week with all these coaching changes because they're about to start.
A lot of the coaches that are being requested to be interviewed are still fucking coaching right now. Mm-hmm. So that's going to happen. Like, we're not going to get that until we get to the championship week, because the guys that make championship week, they're all basically safe unless you're a coordinator and you get a chance to go be a head coach elsewhere. That's the only time that you see the change. If you get knocked out prior to the championship game, it's weird, but you have the potential to be fired. And I think Dallas is ripe to fire fucking McCarthy, because Jerry Jones wants to win a fucking Super Bowl. He has not won in a very long time. I mean, we talk about it. They're them boys, but they haven't been them boys in a long ass time. And making it to the playoffs is not enough. It would be interesting to see if Jerry gives up player decisions to Peyton. That would be an interesting dynamic, but
and we know that Jerry Jones is still definitely heavily involved in those decisions. I think that he still has ultimate control, even though he has given a large amount of control to his brother and Stephen Jones. But Jerry still has the final say so.
Yeah, it's Jerry's fucking team. He makes the decision.
Yeah. But yeah, that'll be really interesting to see. We're going to see a lot of movement and change real quick here, I believe.
All right. So we alluded to some things in there, and we'll start pulling up the picks from last week so we can take a look at how we did, and we'll kind of break down a little bit of last week's games for the ones that really mattered. And then we'll start picking this week's games. So let's make sure that thing is up, ready to go. All right. So this is last week. Not a great week, not a terrible week. We each went 3-3. Obviously, playoffs, it's a little tougher to call. 49ers, they played a very close game in the first half, but absolutely dominated the second half. I won some money on that over at the sports book here at the Jack in Cleveland. Seahawks, were not able to cover. Played a very good first half. Could not hang with them in the second half, though. I think I kind of expected it, especially when I saw that the rain did not show up like it was expected to. That played a huge role in the Niners being able to pull away with this thing.
Yeah. And it's, I can't really go back and say it, but I had made some bets on the sports book on all of these picks, real small bets before we had done the show and everything, several days in advance of the show. And I actually hit on every single one of my picks. I picked all these games right except for the Vikings game. And by the time the show had happened, I basically told myself, I'm gonna make a little bit some more ballsier picks for the show, because I was happy with my hit percentage for the rest of the year. Playoffs are new, that anything could happen. So I did actually win a decent little chunk of change last week because of these, even though I was 3-3. But it is what it is. It's playoffs. Anything can happen. And realistically, the teams that we kind of thought could win did win. And
yeah,
that to me, the biggest upset was that Vikings game. And it's just because no defense came to play for the Vikings.
Well, that and checking down on fourth in the season.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't want to be a Kirk apologist at all, because those were the choice words. I said, what the fuck was he thinking on that play? Did he not know the down? And going back and looking at it, there was only realistically, there's two other options that he has. He can throw into triple coverage to Jefferson, which has worked in the past, but it's not a guarantee. Or you've got a streaking KJ Osborne across the middle of the field about 15 yards down, but he was draped. It was only one defender, but he was draped. But you're not You have a higher probability of that working out than you do of checking down to TJ Hawkinson
Throwing
well
it
before
below
the
the
first down.
sticks. Yeah,
And
way before the sticks.
yeah, and I get Cousins' logic that he said when he was in his presser, he felt the pressure, thought the sack was imminent, which it absolutely was, and wanted to do something with the ball to try to give it a chance. It just wasn't the right choice.
Yeah.
And players are going to make mistakes, and I get it. And he actually played a very good game otherwise up to that point and had a good season. But still, checkdowns just can't be an option in that situation. And realistically, as much as I love Kevin O'Connell, I will
that
actually
play call is
you
an
you
interesting call.
You had 4 receiving options. 2 of them were no good. You had Thielen going down the left side. He's washed up. He's probably gone next year. I love Thielen, what he's done for the team, but he was basically a wasted route, which was intended to try to pull some coverage off of other guys. And then that Hawkinson route, that was never meant to be a true route. It's meant to be a dump off if need be, and that's great for the rest of the season. But in that sort of specific play, everyone has to be doing something towards the chains or beyond.
Yep.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
Either way, congrats to the Giants. Unfortunately, and I'm not just saying this because they beat our team last week. I don't think that they are that good of a team. I think the Vikings really beat themselves last week by not having a defense out there, and they have a tough one this week.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But again, we both picked right. That looked like we were going to be wrong as shit on. The Jags fucking storm back from 27 down to get a dub. Trevor Lawrence stays perfect on Saturdays, and the Jags didn't win this game. The Chargers lost this fucking game. We've seen some coach movement already. One of the guys who is still hanging around is Staley. He is still the Chargers head coach. I don't understand it. It didn't make any sense why he's still there. We've seen multiple collapses underneath his head coaching tutelage. And I thought for sure this was going to be the one that sealed it. You lose to a guy who's in his second year, first appearance in the playoffs, throws 4 picks in the first half, and you find a way to lose. That sounds like a fireable offense to me.
Yeah, you actually saw this happen with the Chargers in the past. I believe it was Schottenheimer was their head coach, and he was perennially putting out like 12-4, 11-5 teams, real solid teams. This was when Phillip Rivers was there early in his career.
Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, like those dudes were
always
dudes.
Going to the playoffs and getting kicked out pretty early, and they moved on from the guy, and you kind of have to, because while you're playing a high brand of football, it ends up becoming mediocrity in the playoffs, and you have to move on from him. Staley, from everything I've heard, is a smart guy. He is good at coaching the defensive side of the ball. As a head coach, he makes absolutely boneheaded decisions. As a head coach, he has not gotten what needs to be done completed, despite having a very talented roster most of the time. And this year is another showing of that. And rather than move on from him, they fired some coaches on the team that probably were actually some of the better coaches on the team. You know, you have Lombardi, who I respect as an offensive coordinator. He gets cut. Makes no sense to me. Like the biggest issue on that team really was the defensive side of the ball, and that's Staley's realm. I fully expected him to go. I think it's a real boneheaded move that the Chargers kept him around. But congrats to the Jags. I mean, that is still something that makes you have a lot more faith in that team. And I get it this year from my Vikings, where if you're getting the shit kicked out of you and you're able to still have the grit to stay in the game, have your players continue playing, and be able to come back from a huge deficit like that to win, it says a lot about your football team. And it says a lot about the other football team too, which is, again, why we think it's kind of crazy that Staley is still in that. My favorite thing from that game, though, was there's a video of a guy who had put a $1,200 bet on the Jags to win.
Yes.
Went to sleep, and then his boys woke him up as the game was ending, and him freaking out because he had just, hit big. That was great.
$1,200. for the Jags plus 2.5. And I mean, you see that win. Man, anybody who placed a bet on the Jags at halftime was obviously fucking thrilled. I couldn't imagine you getting less than plus 1,500 odds at half down that much. So,
well, we saw the guy that
Jags.
bet like $1 million at that halftime bet on the Chargers to win a relatively paltry amount of money.
To win 11 grand.
Yeah.
And he loses $1 million.
Yeah, that's a real kick in the pants.
Yeah. But all right, so let's continue on. Bills, they take care of business. I still think that team is not quite great yet. They have the potential to play much better. Josh Allen has made some boneheaded decisions at points this season. I think he was trying to do a little too much, but they get the dub. Bengals get the dub as well. They do not cover. That was a much, much closer game than I was expecting. And then Hubbard able to just take the ball and take that shit to the house for 6 was insane. That's what won them the game. So good on them. And then the Bucks came out and they laid an absolute egg. Tom Brady had no time. That offensive line is washed. They could not protect. They were sending some really cool blitz packages at Tom. Cool alignments and lining up. I just forgot the pass rusher's name. How did I forget his name? Micah Parsons, middle linebacker, and sending him on pressures from there. So they put together a really good game plan against the Bucks. I'm not sure that will hold up this week, but we'll talk about that once we get into the picks for this week. So last week we go 3-3. We'll see if we can't go 4-0 this weekend. I feel really good, really, really good about my picks, and I am ready to get into some analysis. And I came, Evo, you're normally the stat guy. You come with a lot of numbers. I came with some really good numbers on a pick that I know that you probably disagree with, and I think some other people will disagree with, but I think I'm going to be able to change some minds with the information I got.
Maybe that's I have thrown the stats out the window when it comes to the playoffs because I look at it as just a brand new situation. So
the stats that I'm bringing are playoff stats.
All right.
So
well, with that, let's get into it if you want to.
Let's fucking do this, man. Let's hop into the games. We'll start with today's games. Go ahead, take it away, brother.
All right. So our first game up here is going to be happening in just over 2 hours and 45 minutes or so. We have the Jags and the Chiefs being played in Arrowhead. The line has moved on this one. It was originally KC minus 8.5. We're up to KC minus 9.5 right now with an over-under of 53. Two offenses that can definitely put up a lot of points, two defenses that maybe are lacking a little bit, and it would make sense that this could be a high-scoring game for sure. Weather up there looks like it's going to be 40 degrees and maybe a little bit of precipitation. I don't know if you've got anything on that, but this is a Chiefs team that didn't play last week because they were the first seed, so they are well rested and ready to go. And again, the Jaguars team that we're talking about that was getting their shit kicked in for that first half last week, and were able to come back. You know what we saw to Trevor Lawrence was 4 picks there in the beginning, and it just looked real rough, and they weren't all his fault, but it did not look great. And then he is then able to go to the Waffle House afterwards and get himself some pancakes because he's able to bring that team back and lead the team to a win. But a pretty large spread here of 9.5 is expected. How do you feel about this one, Mike?
Okay, so this is the game that I got stats on. Now, when I made my bet, the line was at 8.5. I took this very early in the week because I expected the line to move. It is moving in the direction that I thought. So the weather right now is supposed to be 38 degrees, 38% chance of rain. There is apparently a 44% chance of snow, but low volume. So it is going to be a cold weather game for the Jags. That does not necessarily play to a warm weather team. But I'm going to ask you a question before I start giving my analysis. Now, when you start judging quarterbacks in the playoffs, when does it really start to matter? For me, the first time you make the playoffs, it's a learning experience. If you don't win a game the first time you make the playoffs, I understand that. It's a learning experience, right? Trevor Lawrence, this is his first year in the playoffs. He's having a great playoff already, even though he threw 4 picks because he got a win. But for me, I don't truly start excuse me, I don't truly start evaluating a quarterback's playoff performance until their second appearance in the playoffs, because now they know what it's like. Are you in the same realm, or do you immediately start judging them once they make the playoffs?
I probably would lean a little bit more towards the latter, just because it is such a high pressure situation. I mean, everything is sudden death essentially. Either you continue playing next week or you don't. And the playoffs is when you're normally going to find even greater pressure situations. The game itself is high pressure because if you lose, you're done. Your season is over. But to have a situation like you did last week, where it's the ultimate pressure, you have thrown 4 interceptions and you are down a seemingly insurmountable amount of points, and you're able to keep and regain your composure and come back. That says a lot to me about Trevor Lawrence. It should say a lot about the Jaguars team overall, but as the leader of that team, it says a lot about a quarterback. I'm not willing to just kind of brush aside the fact that it's his first season, because we can say the same thing about Brock Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
He is going through the same thing, except it's probably even more pressure because the guy didn't have the same accolades coming out of college. He's been in pressure in college, but he was never expected to be a starter in this league. He was never expected to be a starter this year. He was never expected to be a starter in the playoffs and possibly a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So everything that he does is a very positive part of his resume, at least up to this point. So maybe there's less weight put on it when we're doing the evaluation of like a Lawrence or a Purdy, but I wouldn't say I really don't start evaluating them yet. I think it definitely makes a difference.
Now, I'm not saying I throw it out the window, but I don't have as much pressure on them in that first appearance because it's different football. You get a little bit of a reprieve on your very first appearance. That's the way I feel. So, and I ask that because the stats that I'm going to pull are from 2019 on. 2017, Pat Mahomes is drafted, doesn't play at all to the last game of the season. Season 2, they make the playoffs. They're very good. He plays well, but it's still his first appearance. So I really start that hard, strict evaluation, that second appearance in the playoffs since 2019 for Pat Mahomes. Since 2019, the Chiefs are 7-4 against the spread in the playoffs. In 3 of the games that they lost in the playoffs, in three of the ones that they did not cover the spread, they outright lost. So they just got beat. Super Bowl, conference championship game, and those are tough games, and especially for Pat Mahomes because he was playing against Tom Brady in those games. So that's 3 of the games they just outright lost. The other game in which they did not cover was to the Cleveland Browns, a game that Pat Mahomes was knocked out of. So the reason that they did not cover in that game is because Pat Mahomes did not finish. When Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs get to the playoffs, they bury people. They either run into an opponent that is very good and just outright better than them, or Pat Mahomes is not playing. If they win, they bury the teams that they're playing. Absolutely bury them. Like to the tune of, let me pull up the spreads here. So they won by what? +9 extra, +3.5 extra, +11 extra, +9.5. Like they were well over the spreads. And since I got this game early in the week, I got it at 8.5. I took Kansas City. I think Kansas City is a far better team. I know, and we got this comment. I'm not sure if it's been popped up there. T-Law doesn't lose on Saturdays, right? That's a very nice, cute little storyline. But this is the NFL. Like that is not a true hard fact that Trevor Lawrence is just not going to lose on a Saturday. That is a storyline to generate excitement about a lesser team playing against a much more dominant team in the Chiefs. I like Trevor Lawrence. I love the fact that he was able to bounce back from 4 interceptions. But I got the Chiefs winning this game, and I got the Chiefs covering. Now, 9.5 is starting to get to the area where I don't know that's going to be very close. 8.5, I feel very good about. 9 is right on the edge. That's where that line was yesterday. And now it's moved to 9.5. I still think that they are a far superior team. I believe that they will win this game. I do not think Trevor Lawrence keeps that Saturday streak up. I'm gonna roll with it even for the show. I'm going Kansas City Chiefs minus the 9.5. They are a better team and they play a different brand of football when they get in the playoffs. If you cannot beat them, they will bury you.
All right. Well, that is an opposite direction of what I'm going. I did get this game with the 8.5 points earlier. I'm taking the Jags plus the points. And part of it is probably a lot of recency bias. The way that the Jags played towards the end of the season, the way that they were able to come back last week, and the fact that the Chiefs have played some lesser teams this year, very close. We have some Chiefs fans out here in Arizona still. I talked to Tani Ortega. He's a big Chiefs fan, and he's like, it just seems like every time this year that we are playing a team, we play our competition. We don't play who we are. The Chiefs have the chance to blow people out a lot. And in the stats that you brought up in the playoffs, they tend to do that. But they've been a bad team with the spread in the regular season over the past several seasons with Mahomes. And I think that this Chiefs team is very good and they have the opportunity to go all the way to the Super Bowl, but I just don't really feel it in my gut. I shouldn't be discounting Andy Reid in the way that he plays off of bye weeks. I think the Jags have an outside chance to win. I'll put it at like a 10 or 12% chance to win this game. If they're going to give me 9.5 points, I'll take the Jags plus the 9.5 because I believe that playoff football, especially in the divisional round, you don't normally see a lot of blowouts. You see a lot of games that are closer. And if the weather's involved, maybe I feel a little bit better about the Jags run game. Now, their defense definitely has a lot of holes, but I do like the run game that the Jags can bring. Lawrence can run with the ball. Mahomes can run with the ball too, though. That's one stat that I did see this weekend is that in the regular season, Mahomes tends to not run as much, even though he is mobile. And in the playoffs, he does like to actually take off with the ball a lot more and make things happen. He gets a little bit more loose with it there. So you could see a lot more running from Mahomes today. But I like to think that we are going to have really good playoff matchups this weekend that are going to be compelling games. I think that they're going to stay closer. And because they're going to stay closer, I like the 9.5 points for the Jags in this one. I think that they have a chance to win it outright. But if I had to put money on it, I would say Chiefs win, Jags covered. I did put money on it. I put money on Jags covering at 8.5 points, and I still think that they can cover those 8.5 points. So if they're going to give me 9.5, I'll take the cover.
Okay. All right. So we're off there. I love the way that Chiefs team ramps up everything that they do during the playoffs. And this is a absolutely fantastic, hilarious comment. Hey, listen, there's nothing wrong with partaking in some baked goods, candy, edibles, whatever it is you like. Now, don't get in trouble, obviously.
Well, we know that 20 doesn't do that. Mm-hmm. He's still in the flight game, so we can't do that. But
yeah, still in the flight game.
20 earlier said Cowboys Jags Super Bowl, and that is probably one of the more least likely scenarios and outcomes.
I would have bet that you could get plus 2,500 odds on that right now.
If you were to have said Jags versus the Giants in the Super Bowl, then we're talking, hey, we might need to go get you checked with a doctor because something's going wrong there.
Agreed. But I mean, I feel good about the Chiefs and the brand of football they play in the playoffs. They are a different fucking animal when they get there, man. Pat Mahomes is absolutely special. Has the potential to be the most talented quarterback to ever play the position. I don't know if anybody will ever catch Tom in Super Bowl wins, but like from a pure talent standpoint, he's got the juice for it.
In most years, I would agree, but this is just a different offensive team. You know, without a true number one wide receiver, you have Kelsey out there, and Kelsey's phenomenal. but it's a different offense. We've seen this offense become different without the Tyreek Hill dynamic on it. I think that if you have last year's game that we all loved, the Bills versus Chiefs, that shootout at the end, if Tyreek's not on the Chiefs, the Bills win that one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Tyreek's not on this team this year. The sort of explosivity that they could have isn't the same. They're a more consistent team, but they don't have that explosion factor. I think that this team, obviously the Chiefs are great. They are the 1 seed for a reason, but I don't see them absolutely steamrolling people like they should be. They haven't really this year, and I think we could see a little bit more of that here in the playoffs.
All right. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you've seen these bad boys yet, but they are so good. This is a Simply Spiked lemonade, and they are fucking awesome.
I have seen them. I have not tried them, though.
Not a sponsor. Could be, because I will drink the shit out of these. They're so good. They're a little sweet. That and the high noons, though, you get a little one of each. Ooh, man. All right. Anything else on this game before we're ready to move on to the next?
No, sir. You've got the Chiefs winning and covering, and I've got the Jags covering on this one.
All right.
All right. Next up, we've got the Giants and the Eagles being played in Philadelphia, Lincoln Financial. The line is Philadelphia -8, over under of 48. This one is going to be chilly as well. 44 degrees. Doesn't look like weather is going to be too much of a factor, though we know that it likes to get windy out there. And this is a Giants team, again, that won last week versus the Vikings. Daniel Jones had another fantastic game as a quarterback. The Vikings make quarterbacks look real damn good because that defense is atrocious. But more recently, as in week 18, we saw the Eagles and the Giants play where the Giants sat most of their starters and actually were pretty competitive versus the Eagles, who didn't sit their starters. Now, it was Jalen Hurts' first game back from injury, but they sat most of their starters for the Giants, and they still played a relatively competitive game, at least through the first half. And obviously, playoff football is very different. So where are you going on this one, Mike? I feel like most people in the country are going one way, but I want to see how you feel about this one.
So what you bring up is a very valid point. The Giants sat most of their guys, and they were able to remain competitive against an Eagles team who basically knew that they were locked up. Even though they still played their starters.
They knew that they were locked in the playoffs, but they had to win that game.
But they had to win. Absolutely. And we've seen the Giants do some crazy things at the end of a season to, barely make it in, and they go on a run. And I like what Daboll has done with Danny Dimes and help rejuvenate his career. And Saquon has had a massive bounce back year. This is playoff football, though, man. And I love the way Sirianni and his coaching staff are loose right now. They are ready. They are fully prepared to go in there and do work. The best offensive weapon on the Giants is Saquon Barkley. I don't think anybody in their right mind would say it's another player. It's not Danny Dimes, and they don't have any fucking receivers. The strength of this Eagles defense is their defensive line. They're fucking fantastic. They are so good. They are great at stopping the run. So I believe that they are going to be hard on stopping Saquon today, and they're going to force Danny Dimes to beat them. But they also have two fantastic corners who are great in press man coverage, and they're going against a couple of receivers who are not great at getting off of jams or separating in the route. I think this is another steamroll. I am on the Eagles, and I am dropping the points. Now, I got them early in the week. I got them at -7.5. That line has grown again. They are now -8.5. So things are trending in the right direction.
And I got them at -8 on Caesars right now.
Okay, so -8. So it's still trending in the right direction for me. I think that the Eagles' defensive line is going to be able to slow down Saquon. I do not think Danny Dimes is there yet, and he does not have enough weapons to be able to make a big difference and have those guys separate and be able to push the ball down the field. I got Eagles, and I got Eagles covering. I really feel good about this one as well. it's another very nice story. Eli Manning's going to be in the link cheering on his fucking Giants and dealing with all those crazy asshole Philly fans. It's just not going to be enough. It's a great story. Daboll has done a great job with that team, but the Eagles are a far better team, and their strength is slowing down the run. The best thing that the Giants do is run the ball. So give me the Eagles
also,
dropping the points.
On the flip side, the worst part of the Giants' defense is defending against the run. They give up almost 5.5 yards per rush. Miles Sanders is good. He's good. He's not great. Jalen Hurts is good with running the ball.
But they have 3 guys that they will rotate in different scenarios. They have the ability to just wear you the fuck down. Nobody's a game breaker, but they don't need that. This is a fucking split veer offense. They got 3 plays, just like Novocaine. Give it time. It always works. That is the model that they have used all season. And it's basically been a winning recipe all fucking season. So yeah, I gotta go Eagles.
If we compare the rosters left to right, the only spot where the Giants have an advantage is Saquon. Saquon is better than Miles Sanders. I don't think that there's any argument there.
No.
But in a game like this, it doesn't really matter. All right. So Wink Martindale is very blitz heavy. I like him as a defensive coordinator. He's very blitz heavy, and that creates issues for a lot of teams. Unless you have a guy like a Jalen Hurts who is mobile, is able to get away, and is able to hit some of his great check down options, which would be a Goddard, AJ Brown. They've got plenty of receiving options there. They're going to be able to, minimize the effect of the blitzing from Wink Martindale. The Eagles definitely win this game. I don't know about the cover, but I got the Eagles money line on this one. I don't really see the Giants having much of an opportunity outside of Jalen Hurts getting knocked out of the game because they're blitzing so much and he takes a huge shot or something like that. If Hurts goes down, I got faith in Gardner to be enough to probably keep them competitive and win this game. But with Hurts in there, it's really a lock for me. Like you said, credit to the Giants and what they've done this year. I really like Daboll as a coach. I like Wink Martindale as a defensive coordinator and the aggressive brand of football that they play. But I don't see a way that the Giants really win this game. The Giants fans probably are riding high after last week, but you've really got to keep it in perspective. And this is coming from a Vikings fan. The Vikings defense is a JV squad this year. They make everyone look good. Backup quarterback, starting quarterback, doesn't matter. They make everyone look good. You guys looked good last week. Not great, but you looked pretty good going up against the JV defense. And you're not going to be able to do that against this Eagles defense, which top to bottom is very good. Yeah. So it's an Eagles win for me, money line.
All right. Eagles on the money line. I'm dropping the points there.
All right. And I know that Roberto Gussolini is going to love to hear that. He's saying Eagles rolled out a vanilla game plan, talking about that week 18 game. Very much so. They definitely could have. They did still have to, a spot to play for, being that they wanted to keep that first seed, but they probably didn't need to show all their cards in their hand. They can go out there and just beat them supremely on talent. And if things started to get away from them in that game, I'm sure that they would do what was necessary in order to win. Obviously, they still did do what was necessary to win. But when it comes to this week, it's going to be a different ball game. They're going to have no stops. All right. Moving on to Sunday, our last 2 games of Super Divisional Round Weekend.
Yeah, I'm so glad that they don't do the super thing. It's just only the wild card. It's just, it's so stupid. But all right, let's go. Let's get into this next one.
We got a Let's Go Giants from Joe Rockstar.
Oh, no.
All right, next up, we have the Bengals and the Bills being played in Orchard Park, New York. The line is Buffalo minus 5.5, over under of 49, according to Caesars. It's going to be a balmy 33 degrees out there, according to AccuWeather. And this most recent matchup was where we saw DeMar Hamlin go down and the game was canceled. So we didn't actually get to see the outcome of this game. This was a game at the time for the Bengals that had big implications. They were absolutely shooting for the win because they were hoping that they still had a shot at that 1 seed. And they were winning before that game got canceled. Bills, on the other hand, they have looked like a juggernaut that has very explosive and implosive issues.
Yes.
Josh Allen has become a little bit of a turnover machine. He's becoming very much so boomer bust. And so this makes out to be potentially our most interesting game of the weekend.
Agreed.
Potentially the most high scoring game of the weekend.
Agreed.
It's a game that everyone should really be tuning into because it's bound to be a fun one. Bengals and Bills. This could be just like last year, the Bills versus the Chiefs. This could be one of those Super Bowl feeling type of matchups because two fantastic teams here in the AFC, very volatile. The Bengals, though, they're down. They're starting left tackle and left guard. That left side of the line is going to be rough. Kappa's out. That has been the Bengals' issue for,
Joe Burrow's entire career.
Since last season, I mean, that's what we really feel like might have lost in the Super Bowl was their lack of line play. And they pumped a bunch of resources in and they got better towards the end of the year, but now they're down 2 players. They're going out there with backups. It's going to be difficult. Burrow's going to have to be slinging that fucking football quick and accurately to a slate of really good wide receivers out there. Maybe the best bunch in the league.
I think it is.
But it's going to be a tough one because they are down on their offensive line. This game is really going to hinge on how does that Bengals line hold up and how many turnovers can the Bengals get on Josh Allen because he's become so volatile. That being said, for me, I picked the Bills as my AFC representative in the Super Bowl. I picked the Bills as a Super Bowl winner this year. And as volatile as they are, I think that they have, obviously they have the capability to win this game. The Bengals do as well. And I wouldn't blame people for taking the 5.5 points for the Bengals up until those linemen went down. I think that's the biggest difference. Now, I will say this about the Bills. I do not think that they have a true super scary pass rush threat on that team right now with Von Miller being out. Their defensive linemen are great. They're phenomenal.
Show is really nice. I like him.
But if you look at just pass rushing talent, they don't really have it. That's where the scary part is. But now that the Bengals offensive line is hurt, that rush is going to get home a lot easier. I like the Bills in this game. I'm taking them outright to win. But this is the hardest game, I think, for me to pick because the Bengals, when they're hot, and they've been hot.
Yeah.
But also, the NFL might be rigged. And because of the whole Damar Hamlin situation, I think that NFL wants to see the Bills make it all the way to the Super Bowl. So we'll see how that plays out. I got Bills money line.
Yeah, so the NFL's not rigged. But this is the only game of the week where I did not pick against the spread. Because I truly believe that there is a chance that the Bengals can win this game. They're a very talented team. They have really, really nice pieces on offense. We know about their weapons out at wide receiver. They have Samaje Perine, who has really stepped up to help out Joe Mixon. And their defense has played pretty damn well. We saw them come up huge last week when they needed it with Hubbard. And Henderson is a stud. Now, obviously, they are a little exposed out on the edge when it comes to Eli Apple, but I don't think we'll ever see Eli Apple covering Stephon Diggs, so I'm not too worried about that. When the week started, when I made this bet, I stuck with my gut and what I went with at the beginning of the year, Bills money line. And now that the linemen are out for the Bengals, it even drives that home more. I love Joe Burrow. He is an absolute stud. This Bengals team is fantastic, but they struggle on the offensive line, and losing the entire left side of your offensive line is going to be very detrimental. I know Von's not out there, but they got some guys who can still get after the pass rusher, not in a dominant way like Von could, but they're still pretty good at getting after the quarterback. I got to go Bills, but I'm going money line. This is the only game of the week that I am not picking against the spread.
Yeah, it's a tough one still for me. Like I said, I'm going Bills money line because I'm going to ride that pony all the way home, that they're going to go to the Super Bowl and very possibly could win it. We'll see what the final matchup is and how I feel when it comes down to the Super Bowl. But this should be a very fun game. There's absolutely still a possibility that the Bengals go out here and win this one. I just like, as a complete team, I like the Bills better. They've gotten healthier on defense. Their offense.
They just got Poyer back, right? They're going to have Poyer back, so
yes.
that is a big help on the back end.
Yeah, and Josh Allen, I just feel like he ends up, while he has been way more turnover prone this year and has had coughed the ball up a little bit too much, I feel like we're going to see a big game from him, especially on the ground. He's going to be breaking the pocket a lot and getting some runs, and those are demoralizing daggers when you have the quarterback break out and get 15, 20 yards. I think we're going to end up seeing that. I think the Bills end up taking this one.
All right.
And our last game of the week, Cowboys and 49ers, an old 90s matchup, it feels like, here in Santa Clara, Levi's Stadium. It's going to be nice out there, 56 degrees or so.
Mm-hmm.
And line San Francisco -4, over under of 46.5. Didn't know if the Cowboys are going to be here this week.
I didn't know either. Well,
not Tom Brady might have himself one of his normal Tom Brady playoff games, but if we looked talent to talent, Cowboys are a better roster, and despite their kicker trying to do whatever he could to throw the game.
You mean shaving points to hit the under because he owed money to some people?
So that is the rumor going around. I don't think that's the case, because you know what? If you owe money to people, the best way to pay them back is to have a job. And he was probably pretty close to losing his fucking job.
So I saw that. Was that tweet real from Jerry? If you can kick, fucking come down to the field. We got a jersey for you. Was that a real tweet? Did you see it?
I have no idea. I know I posted that on the Facebook page. I have no idea if it was real, because I do my best to stay off Twitter. It's so toxic on there sometimes. But yes. I wouldn't be surprised. That is the most toxic social media platform in the world. I wouldn't be surprised if it was real, just because Jerry's that type of guy. He just isn't going to hold back. Yeah. But man, talk about cringy moments. I'm not a Dallas fan at all. I'm not a Maher fan at all or anything like that. But after watching the first two kicks go, I was like, man, that sucks. And then the third one, and you can kind of feel your skin start to crawl. You're like, oh, dude. Yeah. And then the fourth one that went over top of the upright and didn't make it, that it was just so cringy. And it was like, why, as a head coach, go for two? Not just because you now have a higher probability of probably making it and getting some points out of it, but also quit fucking with your kicker's head. Yeah. Like the guy's obviously in his head. He shanks too hard one direction, then starts going the other direction. Just tell the guy, hey, you've done enough for us this season. You ain't thinking right. You're in your head. We're not going to just be like, dude, we're not going to cut you. Go sit on the bench and have some Gatorade, man. You're done for today. We don't need you. Get your head on right. We'll see you next week. But you know what? It ain't the greatest field to kick on out there in Levi's Stadium. And if it comes down to kicks, it's going to be some hella pressure on Maher this week. And I don't know if it's going to come down to kicks, because this 49ers team is fucking great. The defense is fucking great. Offense is rolling. Purdy is defying everything that you would think about him. He has, ever since he stepped into that starting role. He's been absolutely rock solid out there. And I'm sure we're going to have Joe Rockstar commenting on here pretty soon about Big Dick Purdy, or whatever the fucking nickname is that they're giving him out there.
Big Cock Brock.
There you go. Which, great sports nickname. But I mean, he's got the moxie that you're looking for. He is playing in a very quarterback friendly system, but he's executing it nearly perfectly. I mean, what can I say? 49ers are really a juggernaut team right now.
Speak of the devil.
And I could absolutely, I mean, my pick is the 49ers to win, but I definitely could see them in the Super Bowl this year.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2. To accept, press 1.
We will accept. Joe Rockstar, what's up, brother? We knew you were calling in. You are on with the Lineman Lounge. What do you got for us before we start giving our picks? And I got to do my analysis still. But what you got for me, big dog?
Oh, sorry to interrupt, man.
No. I'm the one that controls the phone. If I don't want to listen, I just won't answer. But here you are. I'm ready for you. What you got, big dog?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about Brock Purdy.
Of course you do. What's up?
It still sounds like we're not sold on Brock Purdy.
I'm all in on Brock Purdy. I believe he should be your starting quarterback next year. At a very minimum, he goes into camp as the lead, and there's a quarterback competition between him and Trey Lance.
Yeah, who's not sold on Purdy?
I don't know. I still see people talking about his inexperience and all this other crap. He's a system
we have several quarterbacks in the
coach
playoffs
and the
right
weapons and blah, blah, blah.
that don't have any experience. Of all the guys that have no experience, I think Brock has probably looked the best. He looked better than Trevor Lawrence did last week. Trevor Lawrence got a win, but threw 4 picks in the first half. I'm sold on Brock. I think he is perfect for that Shanahan system.
Well, I think I'm talking to some of the dumb fans out there. I'm not going to name anybody in particular, but talking about him being like a system quarterback with all these weapons and Kyle Shanahan and receivers. Look, man, this kid's like dodging linemen and making something out of nothing and finding his check down as a rookie with no experience, quote. I think he's doing pretty damn good. I mean, let's look at that play where he threw it to the end zone. Had IU done his part and caught that ball, that would be a highlight.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a highlight for like forever. And it would also probably be, we'd be watching it in the football analytics next year, what the percentage of making that play was and all this other stuff.
And I immediately tweeted out when he dropped that, as like, he just ruined one of the great highlights from this playoff. Like, that was incredibly special and just uber talent that Brock was putting on display to make that throw and to put it right on him. That's got to be caught, because that was going, like you're saying, that was going to be one of the plays that gets shown for a long fucking time in playoff history, because it was incredible the way he was able to escape.
I think that there is reason to say that, yeah, he's a bit of a system quarterback and stuff like that, but I don't look at it as a detriment. Like, he's playing in a system that is catering to his skill set phenomenally, and he is still kind of achieving beyond it. Because like that play that you're talking about, he made that happen. That throw to Ayuk, he made a touchdown there as possible as he could, despite the situation. He's outperforming. I think that it is probably pretty normal for fans in general, but San Francisco fans at this point, you start rolling out the reasons why you could lose, because if you lose this game somehow, there's got to be some copium. There's got to be a way to say, oh, this is why we lost. But I mean, it will take, after this week, I don't know how you can continue to kind of ride that. You have to be like, it's obvious what's going on here. Like, the guy is taking over the team. Trey Lance is not your dude going into camp next year. If he wins this game and takes you guys to the championship game, the way that Purdy is playing is becoming very quickly undeniable that he looks like he is the best fit to take this team going forward.
Absolutely. And one thing that Joe brought up in previous calls was, who gives a shit where you were picked? Like, I don't care that they gave up 2-3 first rounders to go get Trey Lance. I do not care. And neither should the 49ers organization. I do not give a fuck how much draft capital and salary you have dumped into this guy. This is the NFL. You play to win the fucking games. I don't know how many other coaches' adages from press conferences I can pull, but you play to win the game. Like, and that's what Brock is doing. He's fucking going out there and he's winning. He's shown more than Trey Lance ever has. And they've played, what, about the same number of games? So.
Yeah. I feel like Purdy's played more at this point.
So
maybe one or two more.
Being an assistant quarterback, I don't have a problem with it, honestly. I think people say it, though, to take something away from the kid, and that's what pisses me off about it. Not necessarily that it's not true. I mean, it's good to be a system quarterback. You play within your system. You do what your coaches ask.
Lamar Jackson is a fucking system quarterback.
Tom Brady's a system quarterback.
Yeah, like that. I don't. And I agree with you, Joe. I've never understood the whole. Well, he's only good because he's in this system. Yeah, well, I mean, he's in the system, so he's fucking good. Kirk Cousins, system fucking quarterback. There's a lot of guys who are system quarterback. It's very few and far between that you get guys that are scheme independent. Like you get a Aaron Rodgers, who I think could play in probably any system. Russell Wilson early in his career, not now. God, Pat Mahomes, I think thrives anywhere in any system. Tom Brady, I don't think could do that. Like that's not who Tom ever was. Now we saw a little bit of a change late in his career, but I don't know that it was still. He was not as explosive. They were more explosive when he was a system quarterback than when he was fucking slinging it 60 yards down the field, because that's the way Tom worked. Like being a system quarterback is a good thing as long as you're still in that system. And if you play well enough, you don't have to worry about going to another fucking system because your coach and you will still be around.
Yeah, I think what bothers me is the inference that they're trying to take something away from this kid's ability to play. Is what he's showing off.
It's normal though. It's hedging your bets. If you take a loss, then you can say, well, I always said, let's take a step back because this guy might not be it. You're hedging your bets, but as a fan, you want to find a way to say, hey, this is how we could get hurt, but still have belief in the guy. It's just fans trying to pad their feelings in case a loss were to be taken. I don't think it's going to happen this week versus this Cowboys team.
This is where I hedge my bet. This game is going to come down to the trenches. As far as I'm concerned, it's all on the line. Defense and offensive line, and how the referees call this game. If they're going to let these guys play at the line and they're going to let them get away with both sides or whatever, it's anybody's game. Obviously, if they're calling more on one side than the other, we've got an issue. But if they are consistently not calling holding calls and all this stuff, I think both defenses are going to get a little bit nullified there, and it's going to be pretty much anybody's game. So.
I actually agree. And then once we get off of here, we'll get into our analysis. I agree it's going to come down to the line play, and I feel very good about the 49ers and their line. And I'll get into that kind of once we get off the call here on why it's going to make a difference.
Yeah. The weakest part of the 49ers right now is our secondary. So, and I obviously the Cowboys can take advantage of that. And I watched the games this weekend, and no, I'm not trying to criticize Evo's team too much, but it's the Bills too. I mean, they ended up winning, but trying balls down the field every single down, I get super spectacular and exciting to watch, but I see a lot of I don't know, it's like this big gamble of passing the ball deep all the time versus systematically going and getting first downs and living to fight another day and moving the ball down the field. Scoring quick, I think, is important. The ability to do it. Obviously, if you're down and you need to come back, you have to have that ability. But through the entire game to play like that, it's just a mistake, if you ask me. But if the Cowboys come out there slinging it like that, I think they have a chance, considering the way we run that shell cover defense. Like, there's also the flats, the outs going to be open. They'll be able to systematically move the ball. But if they choose to take that gamble of trying to go down the field with the ball, I think they're going to find themselves in trouble. They'll hit a few, but
the question is, do you really think that the Cowboys are going to have time? You think Dak's going to have time in the pocket for those routes to develop and sling it down the field against this 49ers defense? This ain't the Bucs defense. It isn't that team that barely squeaked their way into the playoffs because they were in the worst division of football. This is the 49ers. Their defense has been absolutely outstanding, especially in the second half of this year. They're going to be able to get the pressure unless you're seeing poor officiating. Bosa is going to be getting home. They're going to be pressuring Dak, and we've seen how much Dak has crumpled in the last part of this year. To me,
nah, you're right.
I don't see how it happens.
I think he gets a few of those off, but how important are they? How big are they as an impact on the game is what's really important. or what I'm really worried about.
And then I guess one last question for you here, Joe. If you have to choose, are you taking Christian McCaffrey or are you taking Tony Pollard?
Oh, dude. My proctologist is not my brain surgeon, so I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah.
And then probably second, I would go with Deebo Samuel. And then
Yeah, by the way, I love that line. My proctologist is not my brain surgeon, because that's exactly what was going on with Skip. His head was so far up his ass. I don't understand. Like, I'd rather have Tony Pollard. He's more explosive. I don't think you watch football, Skip.
Skip's a fan first.
I know.
That's
Skip is a huge Cowboys homer. I get it. He's behind his boys. He's trying to pump them up, but god damn, that is a terrible take.
I mean, I feel for him. I've
heard
him crying last year, and I felt bad for him, dude. But now it's been a year, and I think it's enough time has passed. I can make fun of him for crying.
Yeah, I've heard that Tony Pollard, obviously the Tony Pollard over the Christian McCaffrey's asinine. I hear a lot of people saying Austin Eckler is way overrated. I mean, I don't know about that either. Like, I've seen things on Twitter or TikTok where he's not even a top 10 back. We're getting into the silly season where we got to generate some conversations, and I don't get it. But give me Christian McCaffrey.
Plenty of media types are doing that.
Oh yeah,
you had these guys in Dallas on the radio wishing an injury on Christian McCaffrey. I mean, I've never heard something like that from the analysts.
Yeah, you should definitely not put that out in the universe, especially if you're on a fucking media platform. Never root for injuries. That's the worst thing in the world. It just shows that you're a terrible human being.
All right, guys. Well, if you see me next week on the line, you know that we won.
All right, man.
If not, I'll see you in August.
All right, sounds good, brother.
Or he'll be on here burying Brock or something like that. He'll be one of those guys.
Fucking Brock through fucking the pick.
All right, thanks for calling in, Joe.
All right, thanks, brother.
All right, take it easy, guys. I'm wrong.
All right, Mike. Now it's time for your analysis on this game that we've been eagerly anticipating.
Yeah. So I agree with what Joe said. It's going to come down to the offensive and defensive line. I believe that the defensive line for the 49ers is going to be able to get home a lot against this Cowboys offensive line that is banged up, pieced together. I mean, it's not long ago that we were talking about the Cowboys having possibly one of the greatest offensive lines in the history of the NFL. We're not that far removed from that. There's still some of those pieces that were part of that conversation on that team, but they're not that anymore. They are going to struggle. Joey Bosa is an absolute fucking stallion. So I think they're going to be able to get home, and Dak has been very turnover prone. Now, and I know this is not going to be Joe's favorite thing to hear, but I'm more worried about the offensive line for the 49ers. They are so fucking good. They are so goddamn good, and they win in so many different ways. I believe if you lined up the 49ers offensive line against the Cowboys pass rush and just went one-on-ones, and I would take the 49ers offensive line to beat the pass rush of the Cowboys, even though I think Micah Parsons is really special. He's more than likely going to have to line up against Trent Williams, and give me fucking Trent over Micah Parsons. Trent Williams is one of the greatest left tackles in the history of football. It's no comparison, in my opinion. He is a fucking stud. If you just line them up straight up, one-on-one, I'd still take the 49ers offensive line. But they don't have to just be better, right? Last week we saw the Cowboys do some really innovative things and mix and match and change personnel position and groupings where guys were lined up to get home on the Bucs. They're not going to be able to do that because the 49ers win the offensive line of scrimmage in so many different ways. Obviously, I think that they are more talented just as a position group against the pass rush, but they win with personnel groupings. They have 3-4 positionless players on that offense. And when you talk about CMC, Debo, Juszczyk, and Kittle, Those guys can line up in any fucking position on the offense, and they can make you adjust your defense. They are positionless football players. They can do a ton of things, and they can win in different personnel packages. They can line up in 21. They can line up in 11. They can line up in 12. And the fact that they move the line of scrimmage anywhere they want at any time and give you the same look and run different shit off of it is massive. When you have positionless football players, and unplug that so I get rid of that fucking echo. When you have positionless football players and the ability to move the line of scrimmage and win with formation, that makes them incredibly dangerous. What Dallas did last week, super impressive, cool blitz packages, interesting pressures, but it won't matter because Shanahan's going to win based on alignment, based on personnel, and being able to move the line of scrimmage through play action. That it's not going to matter. And I'd still take the Niners over the Cowboys pass rush. Niners win this game and they cover. I'm dropping the 4 points. I do not see a way that the Cowboys stay in this one. The Niners are special. I think that, and it stinks because I placed a bet at the beginning of the playoffs on two teams to go to the Super Bowl when I knew damn well the Bucs were not going to make it. I think that bet might not pay off because the Niners are fucking fantastic.
Yep. I'm taking the Niners money line. I'm like 55% Niners money line to 45% taking them to cover. I think they've got a very, very, very good shot at covering here. Don't blame anyone for taking that. I'm going to take the money line, a little bit safer bet. And this is one where I've bet every game individually. I've got a round robin going. I've got a parlay going on all these games this week, and I feel very confident about the 49ers winning this game. A lot of money lines and stuff for me in my actual bets this week with money. 49ers win this game. They're supremely talented. Look, the defense for that Cowboys team revolves around getting home to the passer. And that team, the 49ers, is able to get the ball out quick and get it to extremely dynamic guys that are going to take advantage of any sort of a pass rush that they have. That's the Cowboys' opportunity to win this game revolves around Dak having a perfect game, not having turnovers. If he starts turning the ball over even once, it's kind of done, in my opinion. Yeah. So if you see that Dak roll out there, which more often than not we've seen this year, the game is kind of done for the Cowboys. And I feel like Cowboys will drop this one. They'll go out there and get their new coach and Sean Payton, and we'll move on to our championship weekend.
I agree. I absolutely agree, man. All right. Well, hour and a half. We got these games done. You got anything else you want to toss in here before we get out of here?
No, I think I'm good to go, man. This is definitely a fun divisional round weekend. I really like most of these games. They all should be pretty competitive, pretty fun to watch.
All right. I'm fucking pumped. I cannot wait to watch this Chiefs-Jags game because I think Trevor Lawrence is going to do some really good things. I just think the Chiefs are going to have too much there at the end. We've seen them get down deep in fucking playoff games and absolutely storm back. I mean, I remember them being down to Houston, fucking 27 points, and they won 45-27. So yeah. I'm pumped for the weekend of football. I'm gonna go upstairs, check out my new table. I got a lot of fucking work to do this weekend. I got to write a summary on a script that we made up in class, and I had to create a 1-minute silent film this week. I got work trying to get promotions going for the athletics. Man, I'm super, super busy, but I'm definitely going to make time to watch all of these fucking games because we're getting down to the nitty gritty. Championship week is next week, and I think we'll see the pretenders fall out here and the cream of the crop really rise and take this fucker home to set up excellent matchups for next week.
Absolutely, man. So thank you everyone for popping on today. Had a lot of viewership, a lot of comments today. Thank you all for watching the Lineman Lounge, participating in our socials. We've had all those posts going on, the polls to see where people are feeling these games are going to go. It's been great interacting with everybody. Really appreciate all the support. Thank you. Mike, where can people listen to the podcast or watch us on a weekly basis?
If you want to watch these beautiful faces every week, we do a live show on YouTube. If you are watching right now, that's probably where you're at. If you don't subscribe on the YouTube, please do so. We also simulcast this show from YouTube onto our Facebook page and our Twitter. You can interact with the Facebook page group on anywhere on Facebook. Also, Twitter at Lineman Lounge. Go ahead and hit us up there. If you want to check out the Instagram, we have one of those, as well as a TikTok. If you want to listen, go on to any podcast platform. I promise you we are there. If you find a podcast platform that we are not on, let me know. I'll make sure that we get published on there. And if you want to email us, we have not talked about this in a while. We have an email. If you want to email questions to the show, you can do that as well. Evo, do you remember the email? It's what, linemanlounge@gmail.com, right?
linemanlounge@gmail.com.
All right. So we have not brought up the email in a while. So we have a lot of ways to get in contact with us, to interact with us, to listen and watch. Guys, I'm Mike. The man to my right is Evo. We are here every week. We'll be back next week. We thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. We're getting the fuck out of here, getting ready to watch some football. See you.
Welcome to the Lineman Lounge, hosted by Mike and Evo, calling their shots and being outlandish.
Breaking news from Lineman Lounge. My fantasy football team just took a huge fucking hit. And that also makes it even more likely that the Raiders are going to beat the Ravens on Monday night. Le'Veon Bell is about to be your starter. Latavius Murray is going to go there as well. Jesus, fuck my ass.
Get ready for the thickest podcast in the game. Coming to you from Hangar 6, where sleeves are optional.